Senator Tom Cotton joins us. Good morning, Senator. Welcome back.
Good morning, Hugh. It's good to be on with you.
I have a dilemma, which I'm hoping you can help me with. I am, of course, rooting for the Kansas City Chiefs over the Ravens, but the Lions are playing the 49ers, and this is a dilemma because we know the Lions have never been to the Super Bowl, and the only other original NFL team that hasn't been to the Super Bowl is the Browns, and I don't want them to get there before the Browns. But the 49ers are the 40. What are you doing on that one, Senator Cotton?
I would imagine that most of the middle of the country will be rooting for the Lions. That's where my son said they want to root for. I'll be pulling for the Lions as well. Nothing against the 49ers.
All right. So are you in New Hampshire campaigning for the former president, or are you working on the border bill?
We're in session, so we're in Washington voting. It would appear, judging by the polls and the momentum on the ground, the president doesn't need any help campaigning in New Hampshire, that he's got all the strength he needs. I think he's going to have a big resounding victory tonight, and that will make him the presumptive nominee. And I hope if that happens tonight, then we can all rally around President Trump and focus our fire where it deserves to be, which is on Joe Biden and the Democratic Party.
Well, I would like to do that, but I am afraid that the Republicans are about to drive over a cliff that they've driven over 3 times in the course of my career on this show, where they've signed on in the Senate to an immigration compromise, which dead on arrival in the House. And I think they're going to do it again. What do you know?
Well, Hugh, the negotiations are ongoing, so I won't pass judgment on any bill until we actually have the text of it and evaluate what effect it will have. I think the point you're making, Hugh, though, is well taken. We don't want a deal for a deal's sake. We don't want a deal that's not going to work. We want a deal that will work, that will actually stop the flow of thousands of migrants a day, every single day across our southern border. And if the Democrats refuse to grant those reforms because they're more invested ideologically in open borders, then we'll just have to take this issue to the voters in November.
Well, that's what I agree with, because 8 million people have been, quote, encountered in the Biden years, in 3 years. That does not count gotaways. We had 165 people on the terror watch list. And I want a wall, and I know all the reasons against the wall. It doesn't work. It doesn't go far enough. They can build tunnels. They can bring ladders. But let's talk about the wall for a second, Senator. Does it ever come up in the conference that it is the visible symbol that the base is demanding?
Well, Hugh, you've used an apt phrase for many years, going back at least to that terrible 2007 deal that fortunately died.
Yep.
That the wall is a visible expression of an invisible commitment or will.
Yep.
And I think that's a very important point. And you're right that a wall is a sufficient or necessary but not sufficient step in controlling our border. But it is necessary, especially in high traffic areas that don't have own natural barriers or difficulties. Yes, you have to supplement it with Border Patrol officers to observe it and technology and coordination. But a wall is very simply something that just sits there and works. Human beings have built walls around their civilizations since the dawn of civilization, since the dawn of recorded time, because walls or fences or barriers or whatever you want to call it works. And if it didn't work, then Joe Biden would take down the fence around the White House. A wall works, and a wall is part of the solution at the border.
The Israelis are not going to not rebuild their fence. They're going to build 2 of them because the one on 10/7 proved inadequate. The Finns are building a wall on their border with Russia. They're just as Hungary is building a wall to stop migration into their country. Yep. I don't understand why people don't understand. 75% is better than 0%.
Well, yeah, I mean, Hugh, again, it's just illogical. I mean, to say that, a wall doesn't work is like saying, fire doesn't work. Like, of course a wall works. Again, it's not a 100% solution. It has to be supplemented. In the Army, we used to say that, an obstacle without observation is not an obstacle. That's because bad guys with enough time can breach any obstacle. But you had to have the obstacle. Like, we didn't just sit there and have only observation posts. We built walls and fences and barriers around our posts and then supplemented it with soldiers and guard posts, the analog of a Border Patrol agent, or with technology so people can't climb over it or tunnel underneath it. But a wall is the simplest solution in many parts of the border.
All right, now I want to turn to Israel. The deadliest day in the war for Israel since 10/7 occurred yesterday when 24 IDF troops died, 21 in a building collapse, 3 officers in heavy fighting around Khan Yunis. It occurred on the same day that the Biden administration is using the Wall Street Journal to say that, we don't have to destroy Hamas. I had Ambassador Haley on yesterday. She thought that was a, quote, disgusting comment by the Biden administration. Do you sense Team Biden is backing away from Israel now?
Oh, there's no question about that, Hugh. And it's not just new in the Wall Street Journal yesterday. I mean, for a couple months now, Joe Biden and the Democrats have been ready to throw in the towel in the fight against Hamas. And it's important to note why they want to do this. It's not because of some grand strategic calculation, Hugh. It's because Joe Biden now views Israel and this war as a political liability that is costing him political support among the far-left anti-Semitic wing of the Democratic Party, some of whose votes are necessary for him to win re-election in November in places like Michigan and maybe Ohio and Pennsylvania. So they're making a political calculation about an existential threat that Israel faces. It is appalling.
And I hope that Israel ignores these people, and I hope our party campaigns on supporting Israel. Do you think that will have traction in the fall? If we are 100% with Israel and we communicate that, do you think that moves at least a small percentage of voters?
Oh, I think there's no question, Hugh, that voters across the country are going to be moved against what they see as the growing tide of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism in the Democratic Party, and Joe Biden's apparent unwillingness to stand up and refute those wings of his party, but rather to cave to them and start putting pressure on Israel to find some kind of accommodation, again, with a bloodthirsty terrorist group that burned children alive and gang raped women before brutally mutilating and killing them. Israel can not accept this state of affairs anymore. The Republican Party and Donald Trump recognize that and will be foursquare behind Israel. Joe Biden and the Democratic Party is looking to find some kind of accommodation with Hamas. That's not what the American people want.
Now, I want to turn for a moment to something that's parochial. You and I are Harvard guys. I think you spent 7 years there. Did you do 3 years undergrad or 4 years undergrad?
I did 3 years undergrad, Hugh, and then law school, so I was able to get away with 6.
You were able to get away with 6, and I got 4. And I used to like the place, but now they've come up with a new committee, and they got it wrong again. And here's my first just objective question. You're a senior senator in the Republican Party. You're on Judiciary, and you're on Defense, and you're on Intel. Has anyone from Harvard called you as an alum of both the law school and the college to ask you what you think about the dilemma that they face to fix their anti-Semitism problem?
Hardly, Hugh. I think my politics are no longer in fashion at Harvard. They were never in fashion, Hugh, probably like you, many decades before me, maybe in the 19th century. Knew you were in a minority. As a conservative, we knew we were minorities in college. But, I never for once felt like a beleaguered or oppressed minority. Or even an unwelcome one. I don't think that's the case today when I visit with college students who come to work for me or intern for me. I think in many college campuses across the country, conservatives now feel beleaguered and oppressed and unwelcome. And I think that's doubly true at Ivy League schools like Harvard. I mean, you had, I thought, an eye-opening experience. I think it was last summer when you went back for your reunion. And
boy.
They had some like Politburo junior commissar from the alumni office telling you what you could and could not say on campus.
Yes, I was warned.
I think the rot has set in pretty deeply at Harvard. They announced this anti-Semitism task force, yet one of the leaders of it is basically an anti-Zionist. It's condemned the entire modern project of Israel.
Here's what I don't understand, Senator. You and Senator Cruz are very high-profile Harvard grads and smart people who could contribute to the conversation, and they haven't called. It's not that they're too big to fail, it's that they cannot not fail because they never ask anyone outside of their blue bubble what they're doing wrong.
Well, again, Hugh, I think it's a sign of, again, how deep plotting Gay become president, and they think the constituencies to which they answer want to hear them equivocate about anti-Semitism. Those constituencies being not just alumni or financial backers of the university, but their undergraduate students, their graduate students, their faculty members, their administrators, how divorced their views of those constituencies are from normal Americans' views.
And last question, Senator. Penny Pritzker, the former Secretary of Commerce, is the chairman of the Harvard Corporation. She is responsible for the disastrous selection of Claudine Gay, and she's running the next one. Her brother is the governor of Illinois. She's an Obama appointee. How much do you think what's going on at Harvard represents the President Obama wing of the Democratic Party sort of institutionalizing itself in elite institutions?
I think there's some of that, Hugh. I mean, I wouldn't say it's necessarily like Barack Obama and his personal aides pulling the strings behind the scenes, in part because they don't have to, Hugh, because
Correct.
that anti-American ideological worldview is so deeply embedded in America's universities and media institutions, sometimes even corporate America, that they don't have to call the shots. They're confident that that ideology is going to prevail, even if they take a more passive stance on this or that controversy of the day.
So, the last question, Senator. You're on Judiciary. I saw a nominee come through who is so far to the left, I can't believe it. I don't remember the name. The name was unusual. Are they getting more radical in their judicial nominees?
Hugh, it's interesting to watch at this stage of the Biden presidency in year 4. It is a very, very sharp dichotomy between the kinds of nominees we're getting. In some cases, they're finally getting down to states with 2 Republican senators, so the nominees are actually not that bad. Some I can even support, especially at the district court level from Republican states. On the other hand, in states with 2 Democratic senators or with open Court of Appeals seats, if they haven't been nominated and confirmed by this point, they really are the most extreme of all the extremists. So, yeah, we're seeing at the end of last year and now at the beginning of this year some nominees that are just truly beyond the pale. And it's hard for me to believe that some of these nominees will even come up for a vote. I don't think people like Bob Casey and Sherrod Brown will vote no on a Biden judicial nominee. They haven't yet. But, boy, they're probably working overtime behind the scenes, pleading with Chuck Schumer to protect them from those votes.
Yeah, I'm just hoping they put those on the agenda and we get full Senate votes on some of these people because, boy, they are off the charts. Senator Tom Cotton, thank you, Senator. Always a pleasure. Good luck in fighting a good fight on immigration reform, which isn't reform but should be killed in the cradle.